Hello, I'm Mark, Sumner, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I am in Berlin, actually, in the front of a hotel with John Bartholomew, the VP of Channels for Enable. How are we doing, John?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm losing my voice a bit. A lot of talking, probably too much, so you're going to find that out in a minute. I talk too much. But no, it's been really good. It's my first in Power. I've only been at Enable 7 months. Been great to meet all the MSPs. Great to meet our distributors as well that distribute to those MSPs. Just to really get an understanding of where we do well and where we don't do well and the things that we really need to focus on. So it's been really good.
Actually, I'll start there, John. Is that a community that you're used to dealing with MSPs? Or you're used to dealing with more VARs before?
Yeah, so my background is predominantly with that VAR landscape, but also my previous company, we had an MSP base as well. And I know they build a community, but nothing like this. This is, everything that John talked about when he did his main stage presentation this morning is effectively... We're in a room here with 500 consultants, and each of those consultants is at a different stage in their business's life cycle. So you've got some MSPs that are 10 people, turn over $1 million. You've got other MSPs that are 150 people that are turning over $20 million. So how does that $1 million MSP get 20 million if they want to, or 10 first? So they can ask those other colleagues in the room, they can work with those consultants, understand what they need to do. So it's been really, really incredible to engage on that level, as opposed to most of these events are normally, let us tell you what we do. We're a vendor. Let's tell you our products, tell you why we're so much better. This is more about talk to each other. How is everyone else using Enable? Where is everyone else finding Enables working in their customer base? Where is it not working? And then we've got that feedback loop so we can understand what we need to improve on.
And let's talk about the event. It's been 2 or 3 days in Berlin. What are you actually trying to personally get out of these sort of events?
I'm just trying to survive. just to survive the day. For me, meet as many of the MSPs as possible. Again, I'm new to Enable. When you join a company, my last company, I was there 15 years. When you make that decision to leave and come to a company like this, you do so on the say-so of the people that in the SLT of that organization that tell you everything about that company. But to actually really understand where the company is, you need to talk to the partners. So I've spent every waking hour of this, hence the voice, probably doing more of this and less of this, or more of this and less of this, but just really understanding what partners experience with Enable. And that's been eye-opening, because my expectation was normally you'd hear a lot of complaints, a lot of challenges, a lot of frustration, and not to say there's none of that. There are certain areas that we can 100% improve on, and some of that I've already worked on over the last 6 months. But equally, the general feel is people love Enable. I mean, I don't know if you were in the room when John stood up this morning, but people were on their feet cheering. I was like, wow, I haven't seen that in years. When Mike Adler, our head of product, came on the stage and talked about the developments we're making with product, it wasn't an empty roadmap promise. It was, this is what we promised you last year, this is what we've delivered. And for me, that's what I've always wanted, because it just builds a bit of credibility in the channel. I think that's just so important when you engage with partners. They don't want to see empty promises. They want to see delivery.
One of the key themes from this morning was the importance of cybersecurity. And coming from a strong background from Sophos, what drew you to Enable? You mentioned the SLT there. Was that a big draw?
There's almost 2 groups of people in the world, in the channel world, when they look at Enable. One is, who are Enable? Who are they? What do they do? And then the second group would be those organizations that think that they're an MSP, that they reach the end user via the MSP. The conversation I had with John and Frank and all the other SLT was, we want to transition this company so that we're not just seen as an organization that approaches the end user via the MSP, but also we want to talk to VARs, we want to talk to resellers, we want to engage that mid-market space. And that proposition for me was the first thing. Secondly was understanding that we were in the process of acquiring an MDR company, and then finding out who that company were, and it was Robert Johnson who was at the helm of that, was a huge reason for me to join this company. If you think about his background just as an individual and what that company have done, for me, what they can deliver into that cybersecurity market that I think is missing right now is something that I think we can stand out from all the other vendors. And for me, that was the important thing. When I was at RSA last year, I don't know if you went to RSA last year, but if you walk around the stands, every stand, MDR, everyone does MDR. And I think right now, the end user community, especially in that mid-market space, is sitting there thinking, where do we go? Who do we buy MDR from? Who delivers MDR? What is MDR? And for us, what I really like is that Adlumin proposition is vendor agnostic. So you don't have to integrate it. It just sits over what you might have as an endpoint solution. And I think with end users fearful so much of not if something happens, when something happens now, MDR is a proposition they need, but now we can actually provide them with something that delivers that service that maybe they were lacking from other organizations.
And how do you plan to leverage your own background, your own security experience to enhance Enable's offering to partners, as you mentioned?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. One is making sure that we're very clear on what that proposition is. Two, making sure that proposition is easy to articulate for the partners to the customers. Three, I did a lot of due diligence on the technology to make sure that it was solid. Not to say that where I've been previously wasn't, but again, I think every organization approaches security services slightly differently. What I really liked about Adlumin's positioning was, again, that vendor agnostic piece, but then being able to take that into partners and then say, well, actually, it's no longer just about the cyber security. It's no longer about prevention and detection, but actually it's about cyber resilience. And one of the key messages that's coming out of Empower this week is cyber resilience. So we combine that unified endpoint management with backup and recovery and security. And we're probably one of the only vendors in the market that does that now. So to be able to take that to a partner and give them something to go and talk to their customers who are fearful, we'll say, actually, it's okay. We've got something we think can work for you. It's easy to adopt. It's easy to install. It's easy to manage. You can back off all the scary stuff to the expert, so you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to put up the cost, because obviously the people cost in terms of cyber analysts right now is really high. You can back that off to a vendor like us. And then if you do get attacked, if there is an attack, if there is a breach, we've got all the backup solutions as well to make sure that we can keep you running. You keep your company running.
You mentioned there, John, about doing due diligence. How did you do due diligence on the product yourself? How did you make sure it was fit for purpose?
Yeah. I'm very technical. I'm not. Everyone knows I'm lying. So the same as I always do. I talk to partners.
Yeah.
Let me go and talk to some partners. I want to talk to some of your customers. I spoke to one of the speakers here, actually, Vinod. So Vinod is one of our large MSPs in North America. I know that he'd worked with other security vendors in the past. His company is really interesting. They effectively secure and manage some of the biggest hedge funds in the world. Very small companies, but I think he said this morning he manages $300 billion, or his customers manage $300 billion of assets.
Wow.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And you were with one security provider and moved away, another security provider moved away. They ran an RFP, looked at 35 security vendors, 35, and they settled on Adlumin.
So that gave you the confidence. If he's done his due diligence,
100%.
It's probably fit for purpose.
100%. And I spoke to some other partners, and the general feedback was great technology, great team, great people. And I think, again, back to one of your previous questions, people. How do we work with the channel? We work with the people in the partners. And that is always been my operation.
The channel landscape is evolving rapidly. How are you going to be adapting your channel strategy to evolve with it?
Yeah, I mean, how long have you got?
We're at the front of a hotel. We've got
let me get
just
my
walking
PowerPoint.
in.
Let me get my PowerPoint. Let's get a beer and get a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So the way I've approached it is simply to look at how the landscape has evolved. If you think about the landscape today, if I'm a partner, I've got a number of choices in terms of the vendor I can work with. I can work with a more established organization, and those more established organizations have positives and negatives. Or I can work with a startup organization, and again, there are positives and negatives. What's happening with those more established organizations, and the feedback I get from resellers, is there's a tendency for those organizations to marginalize those resellers, to not necessarily identify that those resellers are managing the life cycle of that customer. And that is backed up by a research paper that Canalys did. So Canalys did a survey about 2 months ago asking what was the biggest complaint that resellers had from a vendor. And the biggest complaint was they do not understand that we manage the life cycle of that customer. So it's not just we'll bring that customer into you, we'll bring all our customers to you. But over the life cycle, I think what those more established vendors tend to forget is that it was those partners that helped them build that business in the first place. And what they tend to do is the incumbency programs get reduced, they get eroded, or they get removed completely. I built a program that doesn't just reward at the front end, so it gives market-leading partner discounts, as you'd expect, but also understands that partner is building that customer or managing that customer through the life cycle, that customer engagement with us. So there are rewards for those partners at the back end. And then what I've also done is I've identified all the areas where partners find it difficult to work with a vendor. So, some of the portals out there are quite clunky. Some of the enablement's not great. Some of the journeys that resellers go on. So building a portal that actually takes our partners on the journey in one place, so they don't have to go into multiple systems. You know what it's like personally when you have to go onto a website and it's 4 different passwords and 4 different access points to do one thing. So we do that all in one place. And then my second horizon, which will be the second half of this year, is I'm meeting a lady here tomorrow actually, who runs an AI company. I met her 4 weeks ago. Incredibly intelligent human being. And what she is going to help us do is create a lot more automation in what we do around the processes and the engagement we have with partners. Slightly dull stuff. It's not exciting. It's not sexy. But actually what it means is the relationship that we have with our partners and the engagement we have a relationship with those partners is so much better. And the time that they have to spend on the admin work and the slightly less exciting stuff goes away because we automate so much with them backwards and forwards. So I just really want to make that journey positive with the partners.
You mentioned there about vendors. Normally when I go to a vendor event, I find it quite dull, to be honest with you, John. I go to a vendor event and they start telling me about the product and I'm listening and then it's free drinks afterwards, etc., etc. This, to me, does feel different. It felt that you were building a community. It felt co-opetition, as a word, utilising the experience in the room. Has that been done by luck, or is that on purpose actually what you're trying to create? Because when I was looking around, I was thinking, actually, it does feel like a community and everyone's together, whereas when I go to a vendor event, they're normally just telling me what their product is about. So give me a bit of background as to how you've done that.
Yeah, it's not easy. I don't think it's easy at all. And I think it's been a long time. And if you think, Enable has built that over the last 20 years. It hasn't just happened. And what they've learned really quickly is that if you don't have a good, solid relationship with your customers, they will go somewhere else. There is choice out there. I mean, there's so much choice out there now. And again, I think a lot of organizations forget that. A lot of organizations forget that when a partner comes to an event like this, they don't just want to be sold to. They don't just want to be told our product is better than everyone else's because we say it is. It's go and have a look, go and talk to people, go and understand what people are experiencing. As I said, John talking about the 500 consultants in a room. All I saw last night when I was at the dinner event we ran was different distributors talking to it. They're competitors. They work in the same countries, they work in the same market, but they want to understand, how have you grown? What have been your pains? How have you overcome those pains? But also, if you think, we've got the team called the Head Nerds, and funny enough, this is one of the reasons I joined Enable as well. I was almost hypnotized by these head nerds because what they've got is business expertise in the MSP space, and I've never seen that before. I've never seen a company invest in so much resource that doesn't necessarily bring revenue into an organization. And for me, that says it all. If you think of the world we live in now, where most companies are focused on how do we get more, how do we get more, how do we get more with less, we've got this team of head nerds, and their sole job is to work with MSPs and help them understand, if you're a technology organization, how do you sell? If you're a technology organization, how do you market? We'll help you with that. And we built that into our new partner portal as well. We've got these market campaigns in a box. So if you're a small reseller or a small MSP, don't worry, we'll help you do that. So I think there's a lot of that inbuilt, not just into the MSP business, but in terms of as we go and launch into the reseller world, I'm trying to bring that to the reseller world because it doesn't exist right now.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible opportunity for me, which is why I'm so excited to be here.
John, how do you balance the needs? You've touched on it. How do you balance the needs of the distributors, the resellers, the MSP within the ecosystem of Enable? How do you balance it?
First of all, set expectations. I hear so much negativity in different organizations, certainly around distribution. And I've always been a massive fan of distribution. There's so much value they can add. But I think where people get it so wrong with distribution is not necessarily setting the expectation. What do we need you to do for us? Distribution have so many assets, so many different facets, so many different things they can bring to an organization. If you're very clear with them, if you set the expectations and you build a plan with them, which is what we're doing with our distributors here, they enjoy the experience because they know what they have to do, they know what they need to achieve, and we reward them for it. We reward them incredibly well for it. So that's the first piece. We don't necessarily marginalize our distributors. We don't reduce the profitability they can make with us simply because we don't believe they add value. I see significant value in them. The same with our partners. Our partners bring us a huge value. We want to get to those end customers. We can't do that ourselves. We have to do that through the partners. I've never been a believer that you do that on a transactional basis. If I'm a partner, I make a decision. Do I sell this product? Do I sell this product? Do I work with this company? Do I work with this company? And that's a long-term investment. And there should be a huge amount of due diligence done by that partner before they make that step. When they make that step, it's going to be a long-term investment. And I want partners to do that with us, to look at us and think, well, I can see the future. I can see the technology roadmap. It certainly resonates with my customer. I can see the margin potential, the profitability with this organization. That resonates with us as an organization. But also the different parts of their business as well, the sellers, the marketers, how are they going to position Enable? How does that fit with what they position with their customers? So I think we that can resonate with them as well. And then with MSPs, again, it's making sure that we add that value, like we talked about, the head nerds. You know, we can help them shape and build their businesses, not just, here's some products, please go and sell them. It's let's talk to you about how your business operates. Why is unified endpoint management so important? Why have we just added vulnerability assessment and vulnerability management to endpoint? It's because that is where security starts. And we've added that for free. We haven't just said, here's another SKU, go and sell it. We want more money. We're going to add it to you because the feedback we got is you're nervous. You're nervous because we feel like your customers aren't protected. So we're going to give you this. But also what we recommend is you now start to look at things like MDR, because it's gone past protection detection. And you now need remediation and incident response to make sure if something does happen or when something does happen, you're okay, you're protected. Your customer's not going to panic. You don't need to panic because you've got a service that backs you up.
Given your background in security, where do you see the biggest gap for MSPs in their security offerings to their customers?
It's funny, I'll tell you a story. I first started in this industry in 1997, back when dinosaurs still roamed the earth. It was all in black and white, but it was a different world. You know, I worked for a company called Dr. Solomon's. We were selling antivirus endpoint, and my first job was in this industry was phoning customers up and saying, I want to talk to you about web and email protection. And most of them laughed me off the phone. There are no threats from the web. There are no threats from email. You know, fast forward to 2025, and the threats have just become so complicated. AI is making those threats propagate at such a fast rate that MSPs have to invest in organizations that have invested in AI. They have to invest in organizations that have a service offering, because as much as an MSP offers a service, they need that comfort, I think, of backing that service off to someone as well. And I think so their customers. And that's a lot of conversations I've had over the last couple of days have been around that. Those organizations, those MSPs have an endpoint solution. Why should they move to MDR? Why is that the step they should definitely take? It's quite a big leap in terms of, you know, the investment they're having to make and the investment for their customers. But as we talked about, and we talked about on the stage today, everything has moved away from if, and it's now when. When something happens, protection, detection, if it's got past that, what do you do? What happens? Because that's when everything hits the fan. You know, that's when the panic sets in for that organization. That's when that organization stops making money. So how do we maintain that continuity with that organization? They have to have cyber resilience. And that's effectively what our message has been through the whole event at Berlin. It's that cyber resilience, end-to-end cyber resilience.
One of the messages this morning was also around trust.
Yes.
And how do you approach building trust and credibility with the partner community?
That takes time. It really takes time. I think a couple of things. You have to have a trustworthy face.
Well, is that what you're saying, John?
That's where we start. That's
where it goes wrong.
That's where it goes wrong. So I have to build on that. I think the most important thing has always been execution. I've been around this industry for a long time. I've seen some really good partner programs with bad execution, and I've seen some really bad partner programs with good execution. Execution is the key. And what I mean by execution is do what you say you're going to do. Don't allow people in your organization to dictate what value you think is in that reseller. You know, on a deal-by-deal basis, why should that reseller only receive X amount of partner discount when they should get this? Be transparent up front and stick to what you say you're going to do. And that's the rules I've always had. That's the rules I had for the last 15 years. It helped me build the business I built over the last 15 years at my previous organization. And it's something I'm going to go into this organization, the same rules.
My last question, John, and we're actually sitting here in the front of a hotel, so you can answer it quite easily. Why are in-person events so important now? We had COVID, people were almost saying that events were going to be dead.
I know,
and it wasn't going to happen. And yet this is thriving.
Yeah.
And it's been a great event. It's only day one? So
yeah.
It's been a great event already.
Yeah.
Why are they so important for the channel?
I made a joke to you earlier on when we met first of all, and I said, the biggest challenge I have is getting from this side of the hotel to the other hotel because people want to talk to me. And that's why it's so important.
That's a great problem, though, isn't it?
It's a fantastic problem to have, because I wouldn't normally talk to those people. You know, I would be on Teams, I'd do a webinar, there'd be some Q&A, the webinar would end, that's it. What we have here is we have an opportunity to walk through the lobby, the bar, restaurants, and you sit down. I had breakfast with a different partner this morning, had lunch with another one, had a drink with another one last night. I met one in the lift this morning. They were in their dressing gown going to the spa. John, our CEO, I've met one of our partners in the sauna. As he said, what goes on in the sauna stays in the sauna. But they had a conversation. And again, you don't get that. You don't get that when you don't have in-person events. And you just meeting people face to face. You just talked about credibility. Just builds that trust, I think.
John, you've been a great guest. Thanks so much for your time.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you.